my privilege to introduce one of SUNY Canton's own alumni, Dr. Lavon Williams, from our class of 1999. Dr. Williams is currently a college administrator in the student services area at Union County College in New Jersey, and he's also an adjunct professor at Montclair State University. He's the founder of Men of the 10th Incorporated, which is a not-for-profit organization in the Bronx in New York. The organization gets its name from W.E. Du Bois, from his well-known idea about the talented 10th, a group of highly educated, socially conscious leaders in the Black community. And Du Bois wrote, "Intelligence, broad sympathy, knowledge of the world that was, is, and of the relation of men to it, this is the curriculum of that higher education which must underlie true life. On this foundation, we may build breadwinning, the skill of hand, and quickness of brain, with never a fear lest the child and man mistake the means of living for the object of life." Over the past 19 years, Dr. Williams' mission has been to teach the truth to youth, and he has taught thousands of students the leadership skills needed to design their own path to success, using an exciting blend of history, hip-hop, and his own sports management experience with the NBA. As Dr. Williams puts it, the value of an education is more than transforming students into professionals. It is the platform for transforming young boys and girls into men and women. In addition to a SUNY Canton degree, Dr. Williams earned an EDD in educational leadership from Rowan University, and he recently co-wrote a chapter entitled "Fostering Success for Black Males in Community Colleges through an Educational Opportunity Fund Program" for the journal Engaging African American Males in Community Colleges. And so, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Lavon Williams. Yay.
Thank you, Dr. Zephron. I really appreciate this. And before I begin, I just want to thank you, and I want to thank Christina Lesky and for this opportunity to come and speak to individuals at Canton. I also want to thank RJ Thayer for allowing this Zoom to work and set it up for us. But most importantly, I just want to thank you students who are participating and logging on to this presentation, specifically during this time with the coronavirus. I really appreciate it, and I hope that this message reaches you and inspires you, and also encourages you to continue your success at SUNY Canton. I know you're probably looking forward to returning and enjoying that college experience. I personally was excited to come back to Canton, so I know just to relive some memories and just to see how well the campus has increased. But unfortunately, we can't do it this way, but I just want to say thank you again for logging in. And I titled this presentation called The Suny Canton Way. And before I begin, hopefully I could probably see a few students and ask a few questions, but I just want to show you this for a minute. And I wanted to ask, can anyone tell me what this is a picture of? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I just don't know what it is a picture of.
Unmute. The footbridge.
Of what?
It's like the footbridges at Canton.
The footbridges at Canton. All right, all right. Yes, they are. They are the footbridges at Canton. Okay, so I just wanted to talk about a bridge. And the footbridge is a bridge that is designed to be used by pedestrians. And in 1996, when I arrived at Canton, those footbridges were there before me, and they are there today still. And we are both experiencing that challenge. I'm not sure. I know before, I just heard earlier today when I was speaking, I have Starbucks on campus and things like that now. But we had to walk those footbridges in order to go to McDonald's to get a burger. And McDonald's and Surgery were the only two things really in town to eat after a certain time. So we've all experienced probably walking through those footbridges one time or another. So I just wanted to share this moment with you and share this message so eventually you can share it with others, okay? As they said earlier, one of my most scholarly articles is in the book, Engaging African American Males in Community Colleges. I wrote fourth chapter in that book, but I also have a personal book that it's more of a self-help book. It's a quick book, 35 pages, and it's called Dreams of Being Hova. I consider myself what they call a hip hop scholar. So y'all know who Hova is? Does anyone know who Hova is? His nickname?
Jay-Z.
Exactly, Jay-Z. So the book is really about success and how to achieve it. And Jay-Z is just used as one of the, as the figurehead, but it's really about success in just a hip hop format, okay? So you can check it out. It's on Amazon. It's at Barnes and Nobles. All right. So I just wanted to share that with you. Now, I want to talk about August of 1996. In August of 1996 is when I arrived at Suny Canton. Now, I just want to thank God. I don't know how I got accepted to Suny Canton, but I got accepted, and it was God given to me, so I took advantage of that opportunity. And the reason why I say that is because I was a terrible student in high school. And I'm a person, you know, I use Jay-Z in the first page, and one of his lines is facts only. And that's all I usually discuss and give is facts. So here's a copy of my transcript to show you the proof that I was not the best student. You see it, basically 70s and 65s and 55s. It looks like the North Country speed limit somewhat, right? I was a terrible student. My overall GPA in high school was a 69.6. Now, you already heard from the president, my background. I've achieved the highest level of education possible, all right? But at one point, I was not there. Now, I'm assuming because I talked to scholars, everyone probably in this room had a higher GPA than me, right? This is scholarly week. I'm assuming that people have had GPAs much better than I have, right? I can't hear anybody, no?
Yes.
Yes. So if I was able to achieve with producing at a low rate and you had higher, I guess you can achieve much, much more, correct?
Yes.
Come on now, this is a call and response. I just told you I'm a hip hop professor.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So I want to talk to you really about my dreams. At one point, you know, I went to Truman High. I went to Vanda High School and Truman High School in New York City, and we won the city championship in basketball. And I swore up and down that I was one of the greatest players ever. I was going to be a star. You know, I was definitely going to the NBA. All right. But before that, you know, I dealt with all the same struggles that mostly a typical city person has. You know, I was from the Bronx, you know, the Yankees, the home of hip hop. But there's also traps that we have in that area. You have things like gang violence, domestic violence. I experienced all of these things. You can see that's an X-ray where there's still a bullet fragment in my leg from just being outside late at the wrong time one night. Okay, so I grew up in a single-parent household, but I was able to achieve success, and that was because I refused to live an unlived life. And to come from an environment like that, the great Christopher Wallace once said, you have to have a swell crack rock or have a wicked jump shot. So for me, that was partially true. You know, if it wasn't for my basketball ability, I don't think Canton would allow me in. But I'm happy for it. And like I said earlier, I thought I was going to the NBA. I was going to be in the league, right? That's what I always said to myself. But then what happened was one day I was playing in Canton and we went to a tournament in Oswego, and it was called May Day. And I wind up having what they call a culture shock. So what is a culture shock? A culture shock is the upset and stress we experience when confronted with behaviors and beliefs that differ significantly from our own. And that culture shock for me was I had to play against this NBA player at the time, a gentleman from Buffalo, New York by the name of Trevor Ruffin, sorry. And he demolished us. He scored 50 points on us without even perspiring. And I never forgot that. And I couldn't believe what was happening. And I had to be realistic at this time. Because if you could see the card, in the NBA, he only averaged 4 points. And he was scoring 50 on us with ease. And I'm much older than you guys, so when I was in college or in high school and stuff like that, the best player in the NBA was who?
Jordan.
Exactly. Exactly. The logo himself.
Magic Johnson.
Mr. Logo, right? Everybody knows the logo now. Mr. Nike himself, Michael Jordan. So I had to really sit down and be realistic and say to myself, hey, if this guy is a bench player and he's killing me, what would Michael Jordan do to me? I think it's time to focus on school. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So when I had my college experiences, I was participating, like I said earlier, in everything. I refused to live an unlived life. I was the captain of the basketball team. I was a resident assistant. I was an orientation leader. I had my own TV show. Canton did have a radio show. I used to be the radio DJ at Canton as well. But most importantly, I was a motivated student. And I was a motivated student, not only to make myself proud and feel good, but I was doing things to make my mother feel proud of me. And at the same time, when we do a lot of things, that's our goal, right? We just want to have a smile on our mother's face, you know, majority of the time. Dad too, but for me, you know, it was really all about my mother. And then I realized too, I wasn't just doing this for my mother and myself, I was doing it for the whole family. Okay, and being realistic about it. But what happened, I had to experience some things in life, and we all going to experience some of those things. And I just want to share this with you. And it's that big word, fear. Okay? I had to experience some fear in my life. When I went to school and college, my mother was very, very nervous of me going to the North Country, leaving New York City, predominantly Caucasian school. She was really nervous. And she said, you know, she was just nervous that I would get into some trouble or be falsely accused or something like that. And I'm going to show y'all something in a minute, but this fear, I could have let it overcome or come into my life and take over and not do what I'm about to show you next. Okay, but in most cases, we know that fear is the number one enemy that is blocking us. So I want to share this with you guys. Does anybody know this woman? Does anybody? No, nobody, but you might. I just had to ask the question. This woman name is Tanya Berger. And Tanya Berger was a student at SUNY Canton. And when I was conducting some research in about 2012, I had to sit back and I had to send her a message. And I want y'all, I'll read it for you just in case. I don't know how it's looking on your screen, but I'll read it for you. It says, "Hi, Tanya. I was doing some research and I read something that affected me and made me think about you. When I was 17 in an environmental science class, and you helped me out, because I passed that class, a lot of things changed for the better. Today, I just want to say thank you and I wish you the best. In addition, this is a reminder to me about how something so small can last a lifetime. Thanks, my friend, sincerely, right? That same day, Tanya wrote me back. Hold on 1 second. Not sure what happened. Yeah. Same day, Tanya wrote me back. She says, "That is so kind of you. We all helped." Oh, somebody's reading it. Okay.
That was the best thing about going to a small school. We were all friends, but sincerely wanted the best for each other. I remember seeing you at Plattsburgh with Short. He smiled to my face. It was a wonderful seeing a familiar face. I'm so glad life turned out well for both of us. And
can everyone hear that?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure what happened. I hear some back audio, but I'm not sure what happened there. Hold on 1 second. Okay.
I share this because I was scared to ask Tom.
What is going on? Sorry. Where were we at? We were at Tanya, right? I don't know why. Y'all hearing voices?
If somebody needs to mute their phone.
Okay. I think we got that. All right. All right. I think it's better. All right. So were y'all able to read what Tanya wrote back? Basically, she just said, "Thank you for the compliment." Then I was being silly. Sometimes I can do that, and just said, "Now can I borrow $1 million?" But I share this story with you because I was extremely nervous to go up to her and ask her. It was her and 2 other females in class, and they were. I'm from the Bronx. I had no idea what solar energy was at the time, and the professor was always talking about solar energy, and he had these solar panels in his house, and I just could not get it. And I eventually, I saw that she kept getting good grades, and the girls in front of me was receiving good grades in the class, earning good grades. So I just asked her one day. And I was challenging myself. I mean, I was really scared to ask her because I was nervous. And I asked her, and I said, I see you getting good grades. Can you help me study? And she said, "Sure. Come to my room at such and such time and the date," and we scheduled it. And gave me her room phone number. So when I went to her room to study and for her to teach me environmental science, I saw she had a single. And I said, "Tanya, how do you have a single?" And she said, "Because I'm an RA." So then I asked her, I said, "Tanya, well, what is that about? How did you become an RA?" She told me the process. And I said, "Well, what GPA you have to get a single?" And it was a 2.75 at the time. I'm not sure what it is at Canton now. But I said, "Oh, that's what you got to get? Sure. I'm going to get that, So that was my motivation. And I'm sharing this because a lot of times when you are considered a scholar and things like that, you're doing well, you have this internal pressure sometimes that you feel you have to know everything. Can everyone hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yes, yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure. So you have to, you feel like you have to know everything, or you have these pressures, you're considered smart. So sometimes you don't want to ask for help. You become hubris and you say to yourself, "Hey, I got this," right? Instead of asking people for help when you really need it. And to put it in the hip hop context, you might have the attitude of something like that girl Drake was talking about, have an ego the size of the crib. All right. But we have to understand that we need to ask for help. All right. And that's one thing that I definitely want to make sure in all areas, especially research. And I'll give y'all an example. Is I have a friend who recently just completed his dissertation, and it took him 10 years. 10 years, but he was just so strong on really doing it himself instead of asking for help, you know? And when he finally sought help, he was able to complete it within a year's time, okay? But the thing is, you know, with research and life, it's a lot of up and downs. So I want to give you a quick example of that. It's basically 2 points, your start and your end. And it seems like life can be like this for so many of us, right? Is anybody in here who feels like their life is full of ups and downs?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I didn't hear the last person. What you said?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, gotcha. All right. So your life can be full of ups and downs. We have some folks, and you know, this is for everyone. You might have some members in your family whose life is like this. It seems like they start off on top, everything is going well, and then all of a sudden it comes down. They still get to their point, but it's just a longer curve, right? What about this? Anybody know some people like this? They always seem to be in a negative. They may have some bright spots, but they just have that negative energy, but they still make it through.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a couple friends like that.
All right. Now, what about this? They just start, they on top, and they feeling themselves, they become hubris, and just leave it alone, drop off.
Yeah, something like it.
So what I'm trying to say is the simplest way to get from point A to point B is just like this, to stay on course. All right? Now, I'm not trying to sell y'all and make you have a think life is so perfect. So let's zoom into this a little bit. Just stay on course. Now, if you see this, you may have some ups and downs, but they're small little fragments here and there. But if you stay on course, this is something I can promise you.
We can't really see your screen, so we don't know what you're looking at.
You can't see it?
We just see you.
Yeah, it's just you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing.
No problem.
I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. Hold on 1 second. Let me go back and try to open it up. Let me go on back. I got the screen showing. Here we go.
You just have to start the screen share again, Lavon.
All right. Share. There we go. Click here and here. See it?
There you go.
Yes.
And then just start your presentation.
Okay. So I'll go back. So what was the last thing you saw?
Nothing, just you.
The text,
Oh, why y'all didn't tell me? Y'all got me sitting up here talking.
the last thing,
Come on now.
we saw were the text messages.
I didn't hear you.
The last thing we saw were the text messages.
Oh, okay. Well, let's go back a little bit. Because I want y'all to understand this is something that everybody experiences. So let's go back. All right. Y'all got the text messages? So you got what I was saying about research already and asking for help? Don't have that ego the size of the crib? And now it's talking about research and how research is full of ups and downs and life is as well. Okay. So I was talking about some people experience life like this. And then some people may have this in their life that's full of negativity, and y'all agree with me. I was talking about start and feel themselves and then don't follow through. But I was telling y'all to stay the course. And this is where the last, where I ended up stopping. So stay in the course. So if we look at it, stay in the course. Yeah, that sounds perfect. That sounds cool to do. But at the same time, if we zoom in and dig deeper, staying the course can be complicated sometimes. So within that, yeah, you will have some ups and downs. But when you know that the swiftest way to get from point A to point B is to follow the rules and stay on course, that stuff will be eliminated in the end. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
All right. So how do you stay on course? Well, one of the simplest ways to do it is what Malcolm Gladwell talked about, is putting a 10,000 hour rule, right? Putting the 10,000 hours in. Have y'all heard of this before?
Yes.
How many? There's quite a few of y'all in here. I only hear 2 or 3 people responded.
I have not.
All right.
I have.
So anybody want to say who has heard what the 10,000 hour rules are?
If you practice your craft for 10,000 hours, they say that you mastered it.
Yeah. He did some research suggesting that if you spend at least 10,000 hours, you can become a master in your craft. But I want to break this down a little bit deeper. And as a traditional student, usually you're supposed to take about 15 credits a semester, right? And you take 15 credits usually because if you want to drop a class or so, you still have that room to be a full-time student for financial aid purposes, so on and so forth, right? So just say everybody takes 15 credits. The average, they say, for each class or for how many credit hours you're supposed to do is 2 hours worth of study. So that's where you see that 30 comes into the screen. Now, a traditional semester is usually about 16 weeks, right? So if you do 30 hours times 16 weeks, you get 480 hours. If you do that for a whole semester, 2 semesters for a whole year of study, you only get 960 hours, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So you're not even getting 1,000 hours a year of school. Now, if you go get your bachelor's degree, which is 4 years, and we just rounded it off to 1,000, how many hours do you have?
4,000.
4,000.
4,000. If you go and get a master's degree and you have a master's degree, and that usually takes about 1.5 years to 2 years. So that's another how many hours?
2,000 more.
2,000.
more. You up to how many hours?
6,000.
6,000. If you go on another 3 years, nowadays you can get a doctorate in 3 years. Another 3,000 hours. How many you at?
9,000.
And we only rounding off now. But when he said the 10,000 hours, what he was really trying to say was that you have to put in the work because you should never stop learning. All right? Because even if you get your doctorate, you still ain't at 10,000 hours. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Now, but a show from this picture, does anybody know who this gentleman is? You want to take a guess? Anybody want to take a guess?
I'm not sure, but he looked like one of the Murphys.
Is he married to Beyonce's mom?
No. All right, this is a gentleman by the name of Reginald Lewis. Reginald Lewis is the first African-American billionaire in the United States. He was a billionaire in 1984. And we talk about putting in the hours. This was an individual who put in the hours. He is known as a person who was the only person to ever get accepted into Harvard University without even having to apply. And the reason why is because he was willing to put in the work and put in the hours. So let me give you a specific details from what he said in his book. And this is, he's talking about, he originally went to Virginia State University and he saw the opportunity. He participated in an activity at the school and they were doing an exchange program. So he was talking about going to enrolling in the exchange program and how he was going to work to get into Harvard. So listen to what it says. It says, an incredible calm came over me and the plan began to emerge. First, have a tremendous first year in college. Second, know the objective of the program. Third, break your ass over the summer. Eliminate all distractions. Nothing except the objective. The program was held over 2 4-week semesters. During the first semester, say nothing about going to Harvard. First, prove that you can compete. For example, take a difficult course at Harvard College during the summer and do well. Second, do the job. Then build upon your strengths. This was the brief, and I've never executed better. Now, he was trying to go to Harvard Law School, and that's what he did. He became a lawyer. And I like to show this to students because this is when I say staying on course, what I'm talking about. You set up a plan for yourself and stay on course to follow through. This was his actual schedule from college. And he says, he wrote an affirmation on it. And look what it says at the bottom. You may not be able to read it too clearly, but it says, to be a good lawyer, one must study hard. And he had a breakdown from when he woke up from sunrise to sunset. See, it even says, I think it says 10 o'clock, 10:30, lights out. Now, I don't expect y'all to follow exactly the same, but what I am saying is that if you want to achieve certain things and you want to become scholars, this is what you have to do. Set up a plan and stick to it. Follow through. All right? Now, I use Reginald Lewis as an example, but I'll give you somebody else just in case. And you all know this guy, right? No matter how you feel about him, he does say some wise things here and there, right? So who is this a picture of?
Kanye West.
Kanye West.
Exactly. This is a young Kanye West. And it's one of these lines that I love. He says, let me go back. He said in the song Spaceships, he said, lock yourself in a room for 3 summers. Doing 5 beats for 3 summers. I deserve to do these numbers. Now, what he's talking about, I deserve to do these numbers, what is he talking about? He said he locked himself in a room doing 5 beats a day for 3 summers, right? For some folks, we know they can't even live without a summer break. But he locked himself in his room, and then later on, look what he stayed on course. Look what happened. He's been nominated and won 21 Grammys as an artist and a producer. He sold 21 million records, and he has over 100 million downloads. So this is just prime examples of what I'm talking about, staying on course, putting in the hours. Making sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, all right. So in the educational platform, this is really where I start to get really excited, because I told you the name of my company is called The Minute of 10th Inc., which is founded by W. Du Bois. And for those who don't know who W. Du Bois is, he's the first African-American male to get his PhD from Harvard University. And this line, I'm trying to give y'all a perfect mindset here. He said, the final product of our training must never be psychologist nor brick mason, but a man. Now, he wrote this in 1903. And when he wrote this in 1903, you know, women were just going to school, but we're going to do a Puff Daddy remix on this one and talk about, when he's saying man, he's talking about humans, all right? Man and woman. Now, listen to what he says. He says, the final product of our training is not to be a psychologist. What's a psychologist? What's a psychologist, folks?
Someone who studies the mind.
Exactly. But you have to go all the way up to what level?
Doctor.
Exactly. Exactly. So he says the final product of our training is not to just become a doctor, nor is it to become a brick mason. And a brick mason is someone who lays work, you know, back in the days, bricks, but a worker, a laborer, he's referring to. But someone is not, that's not the purpose of your education, to be just successful. Too many times people go to school and college just to be so-called successful by getting a degree. But it's not about that. The success is being able to be a critical thinker who's able to have a certain level of discernment to make the right or wrong choices. And usually you want to be making the right choices majority of the time. That's the purpose of an education, to make an informed decision. So I like to use Du Bois all the time because he's a phenomenal writer. I look at this as bars, that they would say, okay? Now, when you're in school and going to Canton, you got to treat it as a place where you can discover your talents. And that's what you should be doing. We were talking earlier, you should always be involved in as many things as possible. Yeah, I gave y'all some of the things, but I was also part of the Brother to Brother Club when they was on Canton. And I did a few other things as well. I forgot all the organizations because I was doing so many at the time, but participate in as much as possible. And the reason why you're doing that is to continue to discover your talents, right? One day I was at a conference with Microsoft CEO, head of education, and he clearly says, at this stage in the game, because the way the world is moving, you have to have a hyphen in your degree. And what he was really trying to say was that it just can't be I'm a chemist anymore. When you're discovering your talents, you might like chemistry, but you also may like business as well as art. You see what I'm saying? So school is a place where you should be, and you should all have that mindset. Don't always worry about the grades. We know that is good, but at the same time, you want to be able to develop your talents. Okay? Now, one of the simplest ways to do that, and this is one of the guys that I really love and love his work. John Dewey said, the most important attitude you got to have to be formed is the desire to keep going on and learning. And if we're talking about the hours, as we've seen already, to get to 10,000 hours, you got to go past the doctorate degree. You got to continue to keep learning and building yourself up, which I know that y'all doing already and interested in, because you wouldn't have been here today, right? But I like to put it in hip hop terms.
True.
And this is the best ever. So he says, read more, you learn more, you change the globe. And listen to the song, is I Can. Now, he says, read more, learn more, change the globe. He didn't say if you read more, you'll learn more, you'll change your home. He didn't say your neighborhood. He didn't say your community. He said the what?
The world.
The world.
The world.
The world. This is what I'm a big advocate of. I did the first hip hop reading in the Bronx. We actually read hip hop lyrics because reading is important. That's the number one thing, okay? So if any in the disagreement, or you could say, yeah, I see it, it's not that simple, let me give you some specifics. Does anyone know who this gentleman is?
Mark Cuban.
Who is Mark Cuban?
Owner of the Dallas Mavericks.
Owner of the Dallas Mavericks. How does Mark Cuban get his money? Does anyone know?
Investing.
Yes. He's an entrepreneur.
He was an entrepreneur. Oh, entrepreneur in what field?
Business. Or marketing.
No.
Oh.
Investing in other people's businesses?
No, that's what you see from Shark Tank. So I know you know who he is. But he got started through technology. And what he talks about when he says read the freaking manual, he's talking about when he used to work at a computer store and how he used to read all the manuals so he would be informed, and that's how he learned about computers. And he eventually had to quit his job because he started to know more than his supervisor, and they got into a disagreement about a process one time, but he said the supervisor never read the manual and didn't understand it. So when we put this in terms, we're talking about reading the manual and showing you why reading is important. Think about this now. How many of you have an iPhone?
Yep.
Yes.
Have you read the manual for your iPhone or are able to use your iPhone to the maximum of its ability?
Nope.
No.
Read the freaking manual. That's why I put this here, okay? But just to remind you, just the other day I got a new lawnmower, and it blew my mind because there was no instructions. Well, I'm saying that wrong. There were instructions, but it was images of how to assemble the lawnmower. The reading is not even encouraged anymore, is what I'm trying to say to you. Right? Everything is just look at a picture. Instagram is the most popular social media platform right now, probably. Why? We're just doing what? Showing a video or a picture. Read, read, read. Now, most of you guys and girls know him. from Shark Tank.
Mm-hmm.
He has read more, he's learned more, and now he got people from all over the world coming to Shark Tank, right?
Yeah.
And he invested in their business. Read more, learn more, change the globe. Now, for those who are maybe in disbelief again, let's look at somebody else, because Mark Cuban might be an outlier, right? Now, Mr. Benjamin Franklin here, I love this, I love this, I love this. We're taking it back, right? We're going back to history. Listen to what he says. He says, from my infancy, I was passionately fond about reading, and all the money that came into my hands was laid out in the purchasing of books. Not Jordans, and down sure not following Migos, Versace, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was purchasing books. He became a founding father for this country that we very live in. He's on money, and he wasn't even the president. And he also started an Ivy League institution. So he's been changing the globe from a long time ago. Read more. Another thing that he did too was the first to have an autobiography. Most autobiographies are following his pattern. Okay. But I need more facts to back me up, right? So who's this gentleman?
Martin Luther King.
Now, what is he known for?
His dream. His speech.
Okay, what else?
Kind of the most hopeful.
Organizing the civil rights movement.
Okay. What else? That's not what I'm looking for.
He really was not a fan of the industrial military complex in general.
What else? That's not what I'm looking for. His famous protest or procedure. What is it? What was he known for?
Civil disobedience, right? No.
Exactly. Well, somebody might have been looking on the screen because I'm not expecting you to say that.
Oh, well, I studied history, so.
Oh, okay. Listen to what he says. He says, during my student days, I read Henry David Thoreau's essay on civil disobedience for the first time. Hearing this courageous New Englander's refusal to pay his taxes and his choice of jail rather than to support a war that would spread slavery territories into Mexico, I made my first contact with the theory of nonviolent resistance. This man, you mean to tell me, has a Washington Monument after him, and by something he read? So again, we read more, we learn more, you're able to change the globe. Did he do it?
Yes.
Okay. So one more, just one more. I have to. So who's this guy?
Barack Obama.
Barack Obama.
All right. What is he known for?
Being the best president ever.
Hey, I'm not trying to get political here, but what is he known for? What else?
Structure.
What happened? I heard structure.
Change.
Okay, but what? What is he specifically known for?
Being the first African-American president.
Thank you. So that's what he's known for. But is he just black? Or is he biracial?
Biracial.
Okay. He is biracial, correct?
Yes.
But listen to this, and I want y'all to understand this clearly. He says, I gathered up books from the library, Baldwin, Ellison, Hughes, Wright, Du Bois. At night, I would close the door to my room, tell my grandparents I had homework to do, and there I would sit and wrestle with words, locked in sudden desperate argument, trying to reconcile the world as I found it in the terms of my birth. So he read a bunch of African-American writers, and he shared those experiences, and he realized, I guess I must be considered African-American. He read it, and that's when he said he started to identify more as an African-American. Did he read? He read these scholars and poets and stuff before he learned? Did he change the globe?
Yes, he did.
All right. All right. Hold on 1 second. I don't know why that didn't turn. Okay. So the thing about reading, and this is what I find fascinating a lot of times with just learning. People like yourselves and others, they conduct research and they want to share it to the world. And a lot of times they have writings and information that is set for us to follow, but people, like I'm saying earlier, don't read, but they also don't imply. And this is what Socrates said very, very long time ago. He gave you the blueprint already to continue that success for staying on course. He said, employ your time in improving yourself by other men's. And he wrote this, I don't even know, I forgot what year Socrates was around, but we know it's old, right? But he said men, but we're referring to men and women these days. They'll read their writings, right? So that you shall come easily by what others have labored for. And I like to put it in the hip hop perspective. If any of you know who Russell Simmons is, it took Russell Simmons 20 years basically to get Def Jam to be known as what it is. And Jay-Z said it took him 10. So if we study and read and watch the movements of Jay-Z, someone can do it in how long?
Five.
Thank you. That took a very, very long time for someone to get, but thank you. Appreciate it. In 5. And that's what reading can do for you. So read as much scholars. When you become a scholar and you start working, it's basically called exhausting the literature, where you read so much where you just start looking at one page and you say, hey, I know such and such where they got that from, all right? You can just start cross-referencing off the top of your head, exhaust the literature, all right? So I just wanted to finish with this because life is basically a learning process. And the same thing when you're reading scholarly work a lot of times. Everything is basically a transformational learning process. And the first thing a lot of times, some of you, I'm not sure how you feel about the presentation, but you may reject what I'm saying, right? That usually happens. But then after a while, you might start hearing things again and again and again. And you begin to tolerate what's being said. But then after a while, you might begin to accept what is being said in different articles and readings. And then over a longer period of time, you begin to value it. So I just want to recap some of the things that I was saying, and I can consider all this the Suny Canton way. I didn't want to talk too long, but one, you got to be realistic with what you want to do in life, okay? I thought I wanted to be in the NBA, and then just to tell you some more about myself, I realized I wanted to be in the NBA. That's why I have a master's degree in sports management, because I said, how can I get to the NBA without actually playing anymore? Because I know I'm not that good. And in 2008, I worked for basketball operations for the New York Knicks. And I was realistic about my goals. And when I got there, I said, man, when you sit there and you plan your stuff out and you follow through, you can achieve it. Out of 270 people, I was the only person who worked in the players' practice facility. 278 people. All right? So be realistic about what you can and cannot do. Don't be scared to overcome your fears. My motto is I refuse to live an unlived life, but don't be afraid to overcome your fears. It's something you have to do in order to succeed. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I'm telling y'all, because of Tanya, I became an RA, and I'll tell you my stuff. I'm an open book. I didn't have any real financial debt when I was in college, because I said, oh, you get free. I don't know what Canton does now, but back in my days, we got free room and board, and we got paid twice a week. Not twice a week, every 2 weeks, sorry. And I was just like, this is grand, you know? So that was just, if I didn't ask for help, that would have never happened. Then when I went on to my next school, I was an RA there as well. So just asking, look what turned out just by asking for help. Put in the hours. Trust me, y'all. I put in the hours. You put in the hours and continue to put in the hours. Sometimes it's going to be looking bleak and you don't think that you're going to be able to succeed, but if you continue to put in the hours, everything will be okay. Read, read, read. I read every day, sometimes 2 or 3 chapters of different things, because it just makes you more informed. And again, that's the whole goal of education, for you to be able to make wise decisions. And then the last thing is, treat SUNY Canton as a place to develop your talents. You're there now, treat it as such. Look for every opportunity to grow. Okay? And when you do that, I'll leave you with this. You can have that, create that vision, but you also have to execute it. Because if you don't, it's just going to be a hallucination. Any questions?
No, sir. No questions. No questions.
So how y'all doing?
Lavon, this is Christina.
Yes.
On behalf of all of us, I wanted to thank you so much for being with us today. Your presentation has truly been uplifting at this crazy time of turmoil, shall we say it tactfully.
Mm-hmm.
And I think your message of hard work and independence and the ability to create change will encourage us to look very hopefully to the future. I want to open it up now for the audience to ask questions. I have one already from the audience. Just somebody curious about how do you keep in touch with your classmates, since you talked about how you were so active with organizations while you were with us.
How do I keep in touch with my classmates?
Yeah.
Most of them through Instagram and Facebook. We just had a party the other day. One of them, when I was in school, this is to show you to be open and creative. Now, I'm just going to show you your goals and dreams. I have 2 friends that I met at Canton. Actually, this is before I was an RA. His name is Jose Morales. And Jose Morales, he came up for an overnight trip. He's from Washington Heights. So he came up for an overnight trip, and I was open to, sharing my college experience with students. So he came up overnight, and he was interested in coming to Canton to play football at the time. Does Canton still have football?
No.
No, but we used to have a football team. And he came up overnight, and he wanted to stay. Now, Jose was always interested in business. And we created this idea, let's start having parties in chain. Now, I was the individual with the car at the time, and we had the DJ. His name was Carlos Villamar. He goes by, I'm not sure who everybody from, but if you're from New York City, Carlos is a DJ on the radio, Hot 97, and channel, what is that, 86.3. He's a DJ, top DJ, heavy hitter, all that stuff. And we would go around, because I was up there first, so I knew a lot of people and connected with people. We would go to Potsdam, we would go to Clarkson, we would go to St. Lawrence and promote parties. Now, 20 years later, Jose owns 2 restaurants which throw parties for some of the top people in hip hop, and Jose is the DJ. And I'm still doing my thing, talking about college, recruiting people, helping people in college. But that's just who we were, being realistic, and those are the things that we wanted to do. So I'm just sharing that story because all that started at Canton. And we never knew where we were going. I never thought that I would be able to be a part of the Knicks and have some people at my disposal to talk to in sports. my goal was just to try to make it. That seems so far away. But you focus on your craft, you stay on course, and things work out. They just do. They just do. If that makes any sense, but that's how we stay in contact. And like I was saying, we just had a party last night. It was not last night, this weekend, Friday. Yeah, on Instagram. Carlos was DJing, and it felt like we were still back in Canton again. I couldn't believe it. All of the Canton folks just continued, and we talked to each other because it's a lifelong experience. You know, you see, Tanya wound up going to Plattsburgh as well. Tanya was older than me as well, so she was in Plattsburgh a year before me, and I saw her, and she just, hey, Lavon, how you doing? And you know, but that was something that happened in 1996. I took that class, and then I saw her in 2001, and I'm writing her in 2012. Just grateful for that experience that you share. So you don't know who's going to turn out to be what in your classes. So it's good to always be cordial with everyone as well, and just to keep encouraging everyone, just like she did me.
Okay. We have another question, Lavon, from our audience. It says, as a teacher of freshmen, I have students who struggle and don't seem to know that they need help. So how do I help them realize that they need help that's available?
I'll give y'all when I'm teaching, I'll tell y'all a story that happened. I had a student, her name was Allison, and this was a public speaking class, and Allison was very, very, very shy. I mean, she had to do her first speech, and it was not good at all. I mean, she was fidgety, you know, head down, didn't look at anyone. And I said to myself, Allison, if I can get Allison to become the best speaker in the class or improve drastically, that shows the importance, you know, would encourage her peers. So I specifically wrote Allison. I said, hey, Allison, how you doing? If you want help, I'm here for you. And this is the things that we can work on to become a better speaker. And in my class, what I do is at that time, who's the best presenter, I let the class vote and choose and decide. And that person gets a surprise gift. And it's usually a $50 gift card to go out on a date or something like that, somewhere with somebody, or just some type of activity, buy some books, whatever. And after they saw Allison present that last time, the whole class unanimously voted for Allison. And it was because she stayed after class a little bit. We worked on just a few things. It really didn't take that much to improve her, but it was just building that confidence in that individual. So sometimes it's just that extra personal touch to let the student know, I see you and I know you can do it. You know, it sounds a little old school, but it definitely works to those who are welcoming too. That's the other part. So it's a two-way street, but you just always have to extend that hand, you know, first. And after that, it's up to them.
Okay. Another question. What is the biggest lesson you would share with students about being leaders?
The biggest, a leader is, oh man, this is one of the, so they always ask the questions, are leaders born or are they developed? And they're a little bit of both. But the thing is, you have to be authentic in what you do. And me, I love hip hop. I don't care how old I get, 90 years old. I'm from the Bronx. Hip hop basically was originated when I was born. That's all I know growing up. I'm sticking to it to the day I die, okay? And that's just gonna be who I am. That becomes your character, that becomes your sort of like your tradition and what you're known for. And with leadership, it should be the same way. You should be authentic in what you do. If you don't like something, say you don't like it. It's not like you have to like hurt someone's feelings, but you're just being authentic. And those things that you do like or you would love to copy or duplicate, you let someone know. A lot of times I'm a big follower of a gentleman. I don't know who's taking business and who's in economics or leadership and management and things like that, but is a gentleman by the name of Chris Argyris. He recently passed away about 2 years ago. He's actually the person who made up the term organizational management. He was a Harvard professor of emeritus, and he said, discuss the undiscussable. And that's what, to me, what true leadership is all about. A lot of times people are scared to be honest and open about situations. And a true person, a true leader is going to discuss those things. And I give y'all an example right now, who had a leadership moment is Governor Cuomo. When Governor Cuomo went out first and said, hey, this is what's going to happen with the coronavirus, this, that, and the third, everybody automatically just felt the presence. He was being natural and authentic about his concerns with the virus and what should be done. That was a leadership moment. He was being authentic. So that's the thing and he was willing to discuss whatever needed to be discussed. He talked about it. He had his slides, his presentation. It was wonderful, but that was just a leadership moment, and that's what leaders should do. Just be willing to discuss the undiscussable, to get it out in the open, because that's how you're able to blossom. And they just have to be honest and authentic.
And context matters a lot. I remember the days when people would make fun of Governor Cuomo for his PowerPoints.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You just got to be authentic, you know?
Okay. I have one more question here. Regarding your organization, the Men of the 10th, what are the biggest misconceptions that participants in the program have with your organization, at least at the beginning?
Well, sometimes because it's called the Men of the 10th is the name in itself, but that was just coming from the talented 10th. And when I named it, I said, it's for men and women, because I want everyone to succeed. That's all it is. Sometimes a lot of students didn't think that they should be a part of it, but it's for men and women. And it was the name. I was giving honor to W. Du Bois with the talented 10th. So I just said the Men of the 10th. And another reason why was because that's what most of my research was based on. And it's really to uplift men in their studies, you know.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the audience? Okay, well, on behalf of the Scholarly Activities Celebration and Committee, I certainly want to thank you again, Lavon. And thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. Dr. Safran, do you have any last words here for Lavon and our audience?
Well, I'm very glad that Dr. Williams could be here with us. You know, it's very exciting to see our graduates and see what they've gone on to become. And, you know, I think Dr. Williams has kind of lived up to what he tries to teach, right? Because he's got an introspective life that's worth living. Mm-hmm. Right? That he's out there, he's trying to help others, he's applying what he's learned, okay, and he's applying what he's lived. And you can't ask for more than that in a life. So thank you for sharing with us.